Welcome back into another quick episode of Spaceman 2.0 Spiritual Truth Life Show. And I'm just going to look at a couple of my chicken scratches I just jotted down about what I believe is the timeline, and just came into my understanding about the Tartarian age of all those wonderful buildings could have been the true age of Christ already on the planet for his millennial rule. And then after that, Satan would be allowed out again for a little season. I think I might have decoded how long that little season is and when it will be. So just hang on tight for me to explain my chicken scratches here. They say September 23rd, which is a Tuesday, coming up right here. Tuesday is the day of Mars or war or business. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, the businessmen get busy. Monday, Moon Day, Friday, Frida or Venus or Vierness in French. So do what you love on Friday. Saturn for Saturday and Sun for Sunday. But getting into that, we know Saturn rules the roost, and these guys are ruling it right now. The Saturnic energy, the satanic energy. So in this little episode, I'm not only going to give you one of the biggest secrets that I've been holding back from expressing or telling about, but I'm going to be telling you who could be the man of perdition. So stay tuned. So after watching a few videos on YouTube about this, I suggest you do. I might have one link down below from this gentleman that gave me some new timeline understanding on how to decode the timeline. But the Christ could have been born. I'm going to give you another understanding, because he's quite right on with a lot of stuff, but he's off with a couple things from my point of view. I might be off too. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure this stuff out. I've been trying to figure this out for over 30-ish years. This is one of the greatest understandings of myself to understand, is the timeline. Now, 8 BC was true birthday of Christ. So are we 8 years already ahead? Okay, so we should be adding on 8 years because they started at 0, but it should be plus 8 because Christ was born at 8 BC, which is minus 8 going further back. So therefore, if 0 starts at 8 BC, we're 8 years ahead. Therefore, we're in 2033. Hence, the 3 years ago, they started talking about the 2030 agenda. The 2030 agenda and the self-sustainable goals and all that BS. So what I'm trying to say is that the timeline is off no matter what, with the Gregorian calendar and this and that. So we can be off a few years here and there, and I'm willing to give a couple different choices that could make sense and make the most sense from my point of view. So anyone that wants to add to this in the comments down below, please do. So we have Christ reigning for 1,000 years, but the other gentleman says it's about 300 or 400. He comes into about 1400, which is when the Dark Ages started, which makes a lot more sense. If he came back about 200 or 300 years later, right, or 400 or 500 years later, just like Buddha came 500 years before Christ, basically Christ came back 500 years again after to bring back the truth and say, I'm going to be back and da-da-da. So he started the Tartarian architecture, which is basically all this beautiful architecture, spiritual, harmonic, allowing energies with the bells. And we all know the details of that if you check out the Tartarian architecture. So, and in that age, there was money in one of the, that had a J on it, or an I, and an I and a J was never on the money, and an I and a J never came into existence really until Emmanuel and Jesus. Emmanuel and Jesus. So it came on the money. There's certain money in circulation back then after the Roman Empire has fallen in 70 AD. So we have this age of the Christos, and then he comes in for 1,000 years, which could have ended around the 1400s. I believe I figured out it was 1370, okay, when the Dark Ages started. And it makes a lot of sense. Now, we have the devil's reign, okay, and then he's going to have his full reign for a certain period. But the little season they're saying could have started in 1776 when the American, Declaration and all that came into effect. And it was basically an experiment to see if people can have freedom and this and that. But 2023 Now we have the Judeans believing in their 6,000 years as well. 6,000 years seems to be coincidental with every 6,000 years. There's quite an incident that happens upon the earth, like a pole shift and a reset, a global reset, a planetary reset to some degree in some way, shape, or form. Could be planet Nibiru, could be a pole shift. The pole shift could have already happened because our higher brothers and sisters keep us safe from that sort of stuff and make it as gentle as possible. Because the Inuits are now saying the pole shift, the North Pole has to be shifted because the sun is going down at a different place. And I think on another type of map, the Gleason map and all this other maps, you can figure it out how it looks like it's going down further because if the pole shifts up towards Siberia, then the sun will go down later and it goes down higher up, they're saying. So it's interesting what they say. So interestingly enough, back to Judeans, 6,000 years, we're in 5,784 year, according to them, in 2023, the year they went into Gaza and tried to destroy that, which is, according to that, 5784 equals 216 years to 6,000. 216 is a 666, or a 6 times 6 times 6. So did Satan start his true rule in 2023 totally to be like enveloped with what came on board too? The new messaging system that is fully now taking place in this year, 2025. You take away 2025. So 2025 minus 33 years is 1992 when the new messaging system came on for HTML that made emails go to 3 to 5 seconds instead of mail 3 to 5 days. Now we're going to the Internet of Value in 2025. It's coming on board. All the banks are getting into it and it's already being used, but behind the scenes where we don't know it as the infrastructure. But now BlackRock and that are going to be offering ETFs and crypto, and therefore the Internet of Value is coming on board, RTGS. And this is needed in 1992. They wanted to have the New World Order come into effect, but they couldn't because Satan needs to be paid right now. He doesn't want to be waiting, and he wants to be having anyone and anywhere pay him. So Satan, for that to happen, has to have the Internet of Value come in, the RTGS system. So if we went into, remember I talked to you about what could be that, this is not financial advice, by the way, but you know, the new Ripple National Trust Bank is at all the 111s. There's like 6 ones. It's at a W, that's a 6, and there's an F1 there. That the F floor something, and an F is a 6. A W is a 6 in Hebrew. So you got 666 all over that. Anyways, that's for another show. So getting into this timeline, 2239 is the end of the 666. Just to give you my little 2 cents here. I believe that's a little bit too far away. Okay, by that time, the earth will be destroyed by these elite, a-holes. Okay, so here we have it, 2025. If 8 BC was Christ's true birthday, we have +8. We're at 2033. And if the last Soros cycle ends in 2036, it means we only have 3 years left. Oops, I kind of disclosed a secret there. We only have 3 years left. That doesn't really make sense if Satan rules for 7 years. So could we be off, okay? If we're in really 2033, could it be 2044 that Christ returns? Which makes sense because that's an 8 and Christ's number is 8 as well. So, but besides that, 11 years from 2025 is 2036. The last Soros cycle ends. And according to Spaceman, in A View from Space, he says that the Antichrist has to come on the stage before the last Soros cycle ends. If he's going to rule for 7 years, I believe that means 2029, 2030. I did this timeline already of the ruling of the Antichrist and when I believe he comes on board. 2029, he'll be the man of perdition coming on board as the New World Order, basically world dictator, because now what they're doing is they're amalgamating Canada, Mexico, and U.S. Carney's talking to Mexican president, They already have the Amero set up, but they're going to, say we got to amalgamate to help the economy come back and all this stuff. And basically it's a new world order when that happens, because once you lose your money system, you lose your sovereignty. So, but they'll make it look like we still have our sovereignty. So we have 2036 to 2044, right? Can that be? That's +8 years. So are we going to be waiting till 2044 for Christ's return? Or for the 7 years of tribulation before that, which would be 2037, like 2036, then Satan comes on board for 7 years at 2037. That's another what? From here, 12 years, and look what's happening around the planet with all the wars and stuff. So I propose Satan's little season is how long? Is it 250 years or the number of Satan's name, which is 666? Okay, and the name of the abyss on the tree of life, and I'll go into the secret of the 462 gates of that another day, but that's a interesting one. But the two names for the abyss, which is where Satan lives on the tree of life, which is the 11 years, I believe he'll be reigning for or coming on board, and then reigning totally for 7. So will that be happening right now? Will the Antichrists, I posted again, be coming on board more because he came into New World or United Nations building and did a little thing back in 2022 or something like that, starting to get more into the international side of things. So 666 years or 333 years, because the two names are divided and two names of 333, which equals 666 for the name of Satan. Okay, so therefore, if you add 333 to 1703, 1711, and 1776, because when you add the 8 years, right? So the 8 years means this is added, and then 1776 is when the American Revolution happened and all that, Declaration, all that. 1776 plus 333, this little season, I believe, is how long? 250 years? No, I believe it's 333, just my opinion. So that would come to 2109. I think that's a little bit too far off. If it goes 333 from 1711, it's 2044. Is 2044 from this date? Or from, are we really living in 2033? That would still mean 11 years from now. 2036 from 1703, I believe, because the people are over there in the States in this time period, in this age, and they were doing all their thing, the Elizabethan, the Tartarians, okay? We're living at that time in the States and still having free energy, and they had to take them down. That's when they actually had train loads of orphans because they took out all the adults, I believe. Anyways, that's the mud floods, taking down all the architecture and burning it all down as well. So 333, right? So Dark Ages start in 1370 plus 666 equals 2036. If it's 1476, like the other guy says, plus 666, it's 2142. I think that's going to go too far. So I think the Dark Ages truly started about 100 years behind that year. Therefore, 1703 plus 333 equals 2036, Satan's little season. So I believe just before the Declaration of Independence came on in 1776, 73 years, or 72, 73 years, 72 years for the name of God, right? So all the Freemasons got together with the name of God and put that all on the dollar bill with all this Freemasonic stuff, right? I just showed you again. Interesting, 333, and I showed you his name 3 times. So the cat's out of the bag, okay? I'm going to show you King Henry started the Dark Ages in 1491, about 100 years after, which is a palindrome. He was born 121, okay? And Satan loves this stuff. So the birth of King Henry of England from 1509 to 1547, and he had a very tumultuous life. He's known to be actually killing his wives and stuff like that. Who knows? But the story goes that the Dark Ages started around 1400s. So therefore, he was in the midst of bringing it even more to a head, or more going into the Dark Ages, right? Interesting, the start of the Dark Ages really taking over. Therefore, another King Henry to end the Dark Ages is fitting. And therefore, you know, cat's out of the bag. I told you it could be a King Henry or a King Harry. And therefore, he has 4 names, Harry and Henry. And you got to look that guy up on YouTube that does geometry. I'll try to put the link down below. And he does his name. His name has 4 names, and he has 4 different names. And he had that 4 different times. And they all add up to 666 in all the different types of geometry, English, Hebrew, and then all the other types. So therefore, this is like winning the lottery 10 times in a row. It's impossible. He describes it too like that. So therefore, could this be Prince Harry's birthright? He's known to not be born from King Charles too. And there was a man in the stadium when a man playing tennis that had a little affair with Princess Diana. And he was a redhead, that guy that was playing tennis. I'll leave it at that. The Merovingian bloodline is supposed to be housing who is the Antichrist in these days. And you can look that up in a few books that are out there. So with that being said, are we in the last days? 11 years to go from 2025 to 2036, the last Soros cycle, and 7 years before that is 2029. So do we have 3 or 4 years before 2030 agenda that it's according to this timeline? And therefore in 2029, 2030, they'll truly bring on this man of perdition who will be ruling for 7 years, and 3.5 years will be nice and easy, because with all this RTGS, real-time gross settlement with crypto, everyone will be happy and marrying and having fun. So for the next 3-4 years, we'll be happy, marrying, having fun. And then he comes on board, we accept his rule, or all the people get fooled into it. And then we have the 3.5 years, he gets shot in the head halfway between, and he comes back alive. That's why they showed people getting shot in the head. And therefore, you're going to accept that he can come back alive when he's shot in the head. And then rule with a rod of iron, which is basically the Antichrist's way of saying, I'm going to control every system of your being and your life. Okay, can Neuralink have a part in that, getting us all into the metaverse and hooking it up to our brainwaves and having us tune right out of the real reality? And then they give us glasses and we're tuned right into an alternate reality and they're telling us what to do. Okay, that's predictive programming in the movie Combat Wombat 2020.